Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into the whole architecture of enduring fame, looking specifically at the career of Keanu Charles Reeves.
Yeah, it's quite a story. We've got this huge stack of information covering, well, everything. A professional journey filled with massive blockbusters, sure, but also this deep personal integrity and, honestly, some truly baffling career risks.
It really does feel like a deep dive into an anomaly, doesn't it? I mean, sustaining a career over 4 decades is one thing.
Right. But the way he's done it, it's so cyclical. Multiple massive hits, then flops that would sink other actors, walking away from, staggering amounts of money.
And then bouncing back stronger than ever, sometimes defining whole genres.
Exactly. He's almost like a textbook case study in building longevity. It seems to be built on this mix of artistic diversity and, well, just impeccable personal conduct.
Absolutely. And just to frame his impact, it's not just about the box office, is it?
Not at all. You look at the critical side. In 2020, the New York Times ranked him the fourth greatest actor of the 21st century. I mean, fourth.
That's huge. That's serious critical weight.
And then, just 2 years later, Time magazine puts him on their list of the 100 most influential people in the world. So it's gone beyond just being a movie star. It's cultural resonance, real respect.
So our mission today really is to unpack how he pulled that off. How did he manage that?
Yeah, we're going to trace it all from his complex, globe-trotting childhood and those early struggles with school,
Right.
through The Matrix, which was just, a phenomenon, his financial decisions, which are fascinating in themselves,
Integrity piece, yeah.
his other ventures, directing comics, even custom motorcycles. And then finally, try to understand that unique public persona,
Yeah.
the whole internet's boyfriend thing. How does it all connect?
We're looking for those structural decisions, those threads that made his fame stick, that made it permanent.
Exactly. The architecture, like you said.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. The foundations. His background. Keanu Reeves, born in Beirut, Lebanon, 1964.
Right off the bat, it's international. Even the name Keanu, it's Hawaiian, means cool breeze over the mountains.
Which perfectly signals that really diverse heritage he has.
Oh, absolutely. It's an incredible blend.
Mm.
His mother, Patricia Taylor, she's English, from Essex, a costume designer.
Okay.
And his father, Samuel Nowlin Reeves Jr., American, from Hawaii. But his ancestry is this amazing mix, native Hawaiian, Chinese, English, Portuguese.
Wow.
And we know specifically his paternal grandmother was of Hawaiian and Chinese descent. So it's a real tapestry.
His parents divorced pretty young, right? 1966.
Yeah, very young. And his mother eventually knew the family around quite a bit before settling mostly in Toronto, in the Yorkville neighborhood.
So how did all these sort of diverse cultural threads shape him growing up?
Well, you can see the direct influences. He talks about being raised with a strong sense of English manners, which comes from his mother.
Okay, the British influence.
But at the same time, his grandmother's heritage meant he grew up surrounded by Chinese art, furniture, even the cuisine. So you have this mix of disciplined British etiquette and this East Asian cultural exposure.
That's a really interesting combination. You think that plays out later?
I think so. It creates this kind of global sensibility, maybe an openness. You definitely see echoes of it later in his career choices, especially things like the martial arts focus or his directing.
Makes sense. But before he found his footing professionally, school was a real struggle for him.
Yeah, the information we have points to that. He's described himself as a private kid, and he really battled with dyslexia.
Which must have made traditional schooling incredibly difficult.
Hugely. I mean, he attended 4 different high schools. That tells you something about the struggle to find a fit.
4. Wow.
Yeah. And he was even expelled from one, the Etobicoke School of the Arts, apparently for being too rambunctious, maybe speaking out of turn too often.
Sounds like maybe some restless energy, perhaps frustration from the learning difficulties.
Could be. It all led to him dropping out completely at 17, just leaving school behind.
And that energy, it needed an outlet. Before acting really took hold, it was sports, wasn't it? Specifically hockey.
Yes, he was seriously good. An ice hockey goalkeeper, they called him the Wall. Played at De La Salle College, was apparently an OHL prospect.
OHL, Ontario Hockey League, that's serious stuff.
Very serious. He actually had ambitions of playing for the Canadian Olympic team. That kind of intense focus, the discipline needed for a goalie. You see that pop up again later, I think.
In the training for his roles, maybe?
Exactly. But that hockey dream, it ended early. Injury.
Okay, so that door closes, and then he turns to acting. Around 15.
Yeah, makes the decision around 15. Gets his first TV gig in '84 on a Canadian show called Hang Him In. Does some theater, too, like playing Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet.
But even then, right at the start, the industry tried to push back against, well, him, against his name.
It's a fascinating little detail, isn't it? When he was trying to get agents in the mid-'80s, they literally told him to change his name.
Why, too? How's new? Ethnic?
Apparently, yeah. Keanu was considered too ethnic or too exotic for mainstream American audiences at the time. He actually briefly used Casey Reeves for some auditions.
No way, T.C. Reeves.
Yeah. But thankfully, he didn't stick with it, went back to Keanu. And, that little act of resistance, holding on to his identity even then, it feels like an early sign of that integrity people talk about.
Definitely. He starts getting noticed more seriously in the late 80s, though.
Right. 1986, he's in River's Edge. And critics start paying attention. Janet Maslin at the Times called his performance affecting and sympathetic. It showed there was depth there.
More than just a teen actor vibe.
Exactly. Then he follows it up with a supporting part in Dangerous Liaisons in '88, which won Oscars. That showed more dramatic range again.
But let's be real. The role that absolutely defined his early image, the one that created the persona he'd spend years trying to evolve past, that was Ted Logan.
Oh, yeah. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1989.
Yeah.
Instant mainstream fame. That charmingly goofy, whoa, airhead persona was born.
Most excellent.
And the sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey in '91, actually got good reviews, too. Roger Ebert loved its visual creativity.
So the big question then becomes, is he stuck being Ted? Or can he actually pivot? Can he show more?
That was the strategic challenge right out of the gate.
And he tackled that challenge head-on, almost immediately after Bill and Ted. The shift to more mature stuff was surprisingly quick.
It really was. And the key move there, strategically, was choosing Gus Van Sant's independent drama, My Own Private Idaho, in 1991, co-starring River Phoenix.
Playing a street hustler, a world away from Ted.
Totally. It was a deliberate signal to the industry, to critics, that he had more range. And it worked. The New York Times praised both him and Phoenix, saying their performances were insightful, not judgmental. It proved he could handle serious drama.
And right around the same time, he basically helps define the look and feel of the 90s action hero.
That would be Point Break, 1991 again. Playing Johnny Utah, the undercover FBI agent infiltrating those surfing bank robbers. Patrick Swayze, Lori Petty.
Classic. And it wasn't just a fluke hit either, right? It did decent business.
Yeah, respectable numbers, about $83.5 million. More importantly, it cemented him as a viable action lead. And he really committed physically for that role. Took extensive surfing lessons in Hawaii, wanted it to look authentic.
You see that dedication again and again. And the critics noticed the range, too.
They did. The Times, again, noted his considerable discipline, how he could switch between the button-down FBI agent and the loose-jointed manner of his comedic roles.
That versatility was getting recognized. He won that MTV Movie Award in '92, Most Desirable Male. His star was definitely rising.
For sure. But then comes that volatility, that willingness to take risks that sometimes, well, didn't quite pay off, like taking on Jonathan Harker and Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula in '92.
Okay, commercially, that movie was huge. Made over $215 million globally. Massive hit.
Huge hit, but critically,
Yeah.
oh boy, it's almost entirely remembered for one thing when it comes to Reeves.
The accent. The English accent.
The accent, yeah. It got absolutely savaged, just ridiculed. One review called it painful and hilarious at the same time.
Ouch. Did Coppola ever comment on it?
He did, later. Said Reeves tried so hard. But you can almost see the strain, It made the performance feel stiff.
So a big commercial hit, but a critical stumble for him personally. And he tried Shakespeare again after that.
He did. Much Ado About Nothing in 1993. Kenneth Branagh's version. The film itself did well, great ensemble. But Reeves, he actually got a Razzie nomination for Worst Supporting Actor for that one.
A Razzie nom after Dracula. That's rough. So after taking hits for the period stuff, the accents, the Shakespeare, what's the next move? How does he fix that perception?
He needed something raw, kinetic, totally contemporary, something American. And that's exactly what Speed delivered in 1994.
Speed with Sandra Bullock, the bus that couldn't slow down.
Iconic, absolutely iconic. And it was a monster hit. Critically acclaimed, commercially massive, $350 million gross on just a $30 million budget.
Unbelievable return. And the director, Jan de Bont, cast him specifically because of Point Break.
Yeah, he saw that physicality, that intensity in Point Break, and knew Reeves could anchor Speed.
And again, total commitment from Reeves. Shaved head, months in the gym.
Totally prepped.
Yeah.
And it showed. Gene Siskel said he was absolutely charismatic, that his performance was juiced with joy. He completely flipped the narrative back.
Yeah.
Bankable action hero, full stop.
Amazing turnaround. And while all this is happening, this massive film career taking off, he's also playing bass in a rock band.
Yeah. Right alongside Point Break and the Bill and Ted sequel hitting theaters in '91, he co-founds this alternative rock band, Dogstar. He's on bass guitar.
That's wild. Juggling action stardom and indie rock gigs.
It really shows that early refusal to be put in a box, doesn't it? Even when he's hitting peak commercial success, he's pursuing these other distinct creative outlets. It sets a pattern for his whole career, really.
Okay, so after Speed, you'd think the path would be clear, right? More huge action movies, bigger paychecks. But looking at the timeline, there's this distinct dip between 95 and 98, a period people kind of forget.
Yeah, it's a really crucial period for understanding his resilience later on. That post-Speed phase had some major stumbles. Remember Johnny Mnemonic?
Oh yeah, the cyberpunk one. Didn't land well, did it?
Not at all. Reviews were harsh. Critics said he was woefully miscast. It completely failed to build on the Speed momentum. Then Chain Reaction came out, and that was dismissed as just generic action formula.
So just a couple of years after being the star of one of the biggest movies of the decade, his career is genuinely looking a bit shaky.
Exactly. Which makes his next movie even more fascinating and maybe baffling, the Hamlet detour.
Right. In 95, he just disappears from Hollywood to do Shakespeare.
Not just Shakespeare, but Prince Hamlet. And
Yeah.
not on Broadway or London's West End. He does it in a small theater production way up in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Winnipeg. While Hollywood is probably wondering if he can still open a movie. That seems like a massive creative risk, maybe even commercially foolish at that moment.
It sounds crazy on paper, right? Instead of chasing the next blockbuster, he goes completely off-grid for serious theater.
Mhm.
But artistically, it paid off.
How so? How was it received?
Well, the most significant review came from the UK's Sunday Times. The critic called his Hamlet one of the top 3 Hamlets I have seen, praised its splendid fury and animal grace.
Wow, top 3 Hamlets. That's high praise.
Huge praise. And Reeves himself connected it to personal stuff, like anger related to his mother's life experiences. So it proved this deep commitment to the craft itself, separate from the box office game, precisely when his commercial standing was kind of wobbly.
And that theme, prioritizing integrity or the project over the easy money, it really comes into sharp focus with the whole Speed sequel situation.
Oh, absolutely. The Speed 2. Cruise control decision. He was reportedly offered $12 million to come back for the sequel.
$12 million in the mid-90s. That's an insane amount of money to turn down.
Astronomical. And his reason. He wanted to tour with his band, Dogstar, and he wanted to do The Devil's Advocate instead, a much riskier supernatural horror film.
From the studio's perspective, turning down $12 million to go play bass and do a horror movie must have seemed like career suicide.
Or just completely irrational.
Yeah.
And there were consequences, big ones. 20th Century Fox, the studio behind Speed, basically cut ties with him for almost 10 years. Blacklisted him, essentially.
Wow. So how did he survive that kind of studio alienation?
Well, partly because he followed up that rejection with another act of financial sort of sacrifice on The Devil's Advocate, the Al Pacino thing.
Ah, right. He took a pay cut so they could afford Pacino.
A big one.
Okay.
Several $million less than his quote, apparently. So the studio had the budget to bring in Pacino, this absolute legend.
So you see this pattern emerging. He uses his financial leverage not just to get richer, but to improve the project or work with people he respects.
Consistently. It's about the quality or the collaboration. And it worked out that time. The Devil's Advocate did well, critically and commercially.
And it perfectly positioned him for the absolute seismic shift that came just 2 years later.
1999. The Matrix, Neo, the One. Everything changes. It becomes this instant, global, cultural touchstone.
And the preparation for that, it wasn't just physical, was it? Though the martial arts training must have been intense.
Oh, months and months of incredibly demanding, highly choreographed training with the legendary Yuan Wu Ping. But yeah, beyond the physical, he dove deep into the ideas.
What kind of stuff was he reading?
He was reading complex stuff on evolutionary psychology, systems theory, like Kevin Kelly's Out of Control. He really wanted to understand the philosophical underpinnings of the story.
So he wasn't just showing up to do the fights. He was trying to embody those dense concepts.
Which is probably why the film resonated so deeply. It wasn't just cool action, it had ideas, and it won 4 Oscars, became this sci-fi classic.
And financially, The Matrix just catapulted him into the stratosphere. For the sequels, Reloaded and Revolutions in 2003, he became the highest paid actor ever for a single production at that time.
He did. And this is where those famous stories about him giving away millions come from. But we need to be clear about what actually happened, because the reality is maybe even more telling than the embellished rumors.
Okay, so what's the real story? He didn't just hand out $100 million.
Not exactly. The sources suggest he negotiated a smaller upfront payment for the sequels. And crucially, he gave up his contractual right to a percentage of the profits, the back-end points, which could have been worth tens, maybe hundreds of millions.
Okay. Why would he do that? Where did that money effectively go?
He redirected it.
Yeah.
He wanted that money to go towards the budget for the special effects and the costume departments.
So wait, he gave up potentially massive personal earnings for better costumes and VFX?
Essentially, yes. It wasn't charity in the traditional sense. It was him using his star power to ensure the film had the resources it needed. He was investing his own potential earnings back into the artistic quality of the production. That's incredibly rare.
Unheard of, really. And his generosity didn't stop there, right? That's where the reputation really solidifies.
Exactly. He famously bought brand new Harley-Davidson motorcycles for all 12 members of the main stunt team on Reloaded, said it was a bigger thank you.
Wow.
And there's that other well-known story about him finding out a set builder on The Matrix was having serious family financial trouble, and he just quietly gave the guy a $20,000 Christmas bonus.
And these weren't things he announced publicly. They just got out.
Right. He built his reputation from within the industry, from the crew level up. People saw it happen.
Even at this peak of fame, though, he's still making some interesting choices. He took another pay cut for The Replacements, the football comedy.
Yeah, did that in 2000 so they could afford Gene Hackman. Same pattern. But then there was The Watcher, that thriller that didn't do well.
What was the story there? He seemed miscast as a serial killer.
He claimed later he never even wanted to do it. Said a friend forged his signature on the contract, and he only did the film to avoid a messy legal battle.
Forced into a movie, even as Neo. That shows even huge stars aren't immune to the industry's pressures.
Definitely not. And on the artistic side, his band Dogstar called it quits in 2002.
Okay.
But spiritually, something really important had taken root earlier from making the film Little Buddha back in 1993.
Where he played Prince Siddhartha.
Right. He said that film taught him a lasting lesson about old age, sickness, and death. About the Buddhist concept of impermanence, that everything changes, nothing lasts forever.
And that stuck with him.
Deeply, it seems. He doesn't formally practice Buddhism, but describes himself as very spiritual. And you can really see how that idea impermanence, of appreciating things while they're here, informs his whole perspective, his empathy, his public persona later on.
Okay, so the Matrix trilogy wraps up. What happens next? The mid to late 2000s seem like a period where he's doing more specialized roles, maybe expanding beyond just acting.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He wasn't chasing the giant blockbusters in the same way. In 2005, he starred in Constantine, playing the occult detective. That was actually a pretty solid box office hit. Made around $230 million worldwide.
Right, the DC Comics character.
Exactly. But maybe a more artistically interesting choice from that time was A Scanner Darkly in 2006, his collaboration with Richard Linklater.
Oh, the rotoscoped one. Based on the Philip K. Dick novel, can you remind us what rotoscoping is?
Sure, it's this animation technique where animators literally trace over live-action footage frame by frame. It gives it this really unique, kind of dreamy, unstable look.
Perfect for a Philip K. Dick story about paranoia and drugs.
Totally suited the material. Now, the film itself didn't make much money as a box office flop, but it got pretty good reviews for its style, its faithfulness to Dick. It showed Reeves was still willing to experiment, even if some critics felt Robert Downey Jr. kind of stole the show.
And we see him dip back into romance, too, right? He reunited with Sandra Bullock for The Lake House in 2007.
He did, yeah. Though that one didn't get great reviews. But what's really defining about this period, I think, is his deeper engagement with the actual business and craft of filmmaking. Well, he co-founded a production company, Company Films. But more significantly, he produced and hosted this fantastic documentary in 2012 called Side by Side.
Oh, I remember that, about the shift from film to digital.
Exactly. He interviewed everyone, James Cameron, George Lucas, Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, about this massive technological change happening in cinema. He wasn't just starring in movies, he was actively exploring how movies were made.
That shows a real intellectual curiosity about his industry. And his passions went beyond film, too, leading to a pretty major venture outside Hollywood.
Right. ARCH Motorcycle Company. He co-founded it in 2011 with a custom bike builder named Gard Hollinger.
And this isn't just slapping his name on some merchandises.
Not at all. ARCH makes high-end, bespoke, custom motorcycles. It's a serious manufacturing business. It really speaks to that same dedication and craftsmanship you see in his acting preparation, but applied to building these incredible machines. He put real time and money into this niche business during a quieter period in his acting career.
So, producer, documentarian, motorcycle manufacturer, and writer. He started publishing books around this time, too.
Yeah, starting with this sort of quirky adult picture book called Ode to Happiness in 2011. That was his first collaboration with the artist Alexandra Grant.
Who would later become his partner.
Exactly. They followed it up with another book, Shadows, in 2014. So you see this pattern. When maybe the film roles weren't as high profile, he was actively building these other creative identities: producer, writer, entrepreneur, diversifying.
But the biggest creative swing during this phase, the biggest risk, had to be stepping behind the camera himself.
His directorial debut, yeah. The martial arts film Man of Tai Chi, released in 2013.
This felt like a real passion project.
Totally. It was inspired partly by his friendship with Tiger Chen, a stuntman he knew from The Matrix, and he brought back his Matrix choreographer, Yuan Wuping, to work on the action.
How did it go down, critically?
Actually, pretty well, critically speaking. People like the legendary director John Woo praised it. Critics noted that Reeves's directing style was surprisingly restrained and focused. They liked that the fight choreography felt grounded, not totally over the top like some Hollywood action.
Commercially.
Oof. Commercial disaster. Made only about $5.5 million worldwide on a $25 million budget. A huge flop.
And that wasn't the only flop around that time, was it?
No, it was immediately followed by another massive financial disappointment. The big-budget fantasy film 47 Ronin in 2013.
Yeah.
It struggled badly, both with critics and at the box office.
So 2 major commercial failures back-to-back. Director debut tanks, big fantasy epic tanks. He must have been in another significant career slump right then.
Absolutely. It really underscores that theme of impermanence again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just before he pivots, yet again.
That cycle of fluctuation is just incredible, because right after those big flops, Man of Tai Chi, 47 Ronin, he stages probably the most impressive and durable comeback we've seen in Hollywood recently. Enter John Wick.
John Wick, 2014. It was like the perfect alignment of star and material. It drew on his action history, his commitment to training, but also tapped into that underlying empathy people feel from him.
Playing the grieving hitman out for revenge over his puppy.
And his car. But yeah, the puppy connection was key. The film just clicked. Immediate hit, $86 million worldwide. Great reviews. Critics talked about his effortless return to action, but with this added layer of world-weary gravitas.
And unlike Speed, where he famously refused the sequel, this time he leaned in hard.
He absolutely embraced the John Wick universe, and the franchise just grew and grew. Chapter 2 in 2017 made more. Chapter 3, Parabellum, in 2019 grossed over $170 million just in the U.S. alone.
Became a genuine phenomenon.
Totally. And by the time Chapter 4 came out in 2023, you had serious critics calling the series one of the greatest action franchises ever made. It was the culmination of everything he'd been building since Point Break, but taken to a whole new level of style and execution.
What's so interesting strategically about this current era, though, is that the comeback wasn't just John Wick. He diversified his presence across every form of modern media.
That's a really key point. He showed his range wasn't just dramatic versus action. He jumped into major voice acting roles. Duke Kaboom in Toy Story 4 in 2019.
Canada's greatest stuntman. He was hilarious.
So good. And he voiced Sage, the wise tumbleweed, in the SpongeBob movie in 2020. He was willing to lend that distinctive voice to huge, beloved family franchises. That broadens his appeal massively.
And then the leap into gaming, which is just a colossal platform now, reaching a whole different younger audience constantly.
Yeah, playing Johnny Silverhand in Cyberpunk 2077 in 2020. Yeah. And the Phantom Liberty expansion in 2023. That was huge. He wasn't just a cameo. He was a central character.
Yeah.
His likeness, his voice, they were integral to this massive, culturally dominant game.
It kept him incredibly relevant. But maybe the most surprising creative venture was stepping into the comic book world as a creator.
BRZRKR. Yeah, co-creating and co-writing this comic book franchise starting in 2021. And it wasn't just some vanity project. It was a genuine publishing event.
How big are we talking?
Issue #1 sold over 615,000 copies. That's an insane number for a single comic issue, the best-selling first issue since 2015, apparently. It showed a real commitment to storytelling in that medium, and it's expanded into spin-offs and even a novel he co-wrote, The Book of Elsewhere.
It's like he's building his own interconnected universe across platforms, and the story loops back around again with his band.
Dogstar. They got back together during the pandemic, put out a new album in 2023, somewhere between the power lines and palm trees, and started touring again.
So he's literally headlining global action blockbusters and playing club gigs with his indie rock band. The contrast is amazing.
It really is. And he keeps exploring. He executive produced and hosted that Formula One documentary, Brawn, in 2023. He even made his actual motorsport debut in the Toyota GR Cup Race Series in 2024.
He's just constantly learning, constantly trying new things, and the future looks just as varied.
Totally. He's voicing Shadow the Hedgehog in the next Sonic movie later this year. More franchise work.
Okay.
But then, maybe the most meta moment of all. He's planning his Broadway debut for 2025, starring in Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot.
Waiting for Godot, that's heavy stuff. Another huge theatrical risk.
Massive. And get this, he's doing it alongside Alex Winter.
His Bill and Ted co-star, no way.
Yes, Bill and Ted, together again, tackling existential despair on Broadway. You couldn't write it. It's the perfect full circle.
That's incredible. But we also have to touch on the fact that being this level of global icon, it comes with real-world political dimensions now.
Yeah, that incident in 2022, his films were reportedly pulled from streaming platforms in China.
Why is that?
It was after he participated in a virtual benefit concert for Tibet House US, which is an organization associated with the Dalai Lama. It shows how, in today's world, even seemingly small personal choices, like supporting a charity, can have significant geopolitical and professional fallout for a global star.
Which brings us nicely to the man himself, because so much of his enduring appeal, his longevity, seems tied to his public image, the perception of who he is as a person, universally liked, it seems. But his personal life, it's been marked by just immense tragedy.
Profound sorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
It's important context. In 1999, his then partner, Jennifer Syme, gave birth to their child, Ava, stillborn at 8 months.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Just devastating. They reportedly broke up under the strain, but had reconciled later. And then, only about 18 months after losing their daughter in 2001, Jennifer Syme tragically died in a car accident.
Unimaginable loss. And he was dealing with this while making the Matrix sequels, the biggest movies in the world at the time.
Yes, he was a pallbearer at her funeral. Accounts from that time say he just needed peace and time before he could even face going back to work on those films. To carry that grief under that kind of global spotlight, it's hard to comprehend.
Yet somehow, through it all, he seems to maintain these really solid long-term relationships.
He does, like his friendship with Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
It's legendary. They still joke about being husband and wife, because apparently a real Romanian priest performed their wedding scene in Dracula.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then, of course, his relationship with the artist Alexandra Grant. They were collaborators for years, starting with those books back in 2011, before they went public as a couple around 2019. It seems like a very grounded, mutually supportive partnership built on shared creativity.
And you get the sense that this personal history, the losses and the stable connections, has maybe shaped his whole perspective on life, on mortality. It feels very earned.
I think so. He talked about death recently in 2024, saying something like, "I'm thinking about death all the time. That's a good thing." Not in a morbid way, but hopefully it makes us appreciate the breath we have, the relationships we have.
That idea of impermanence again from Little Buddha, it seems central to him.
It really does. It feels like it informs his outlook, maybe contributes to that sense of grace people perceive in him.
And that grace, that perspective, it seems to directly fuel his philanthropy, which is legendary, but also incredibly private.
Very private. He set up a private cancer foundation years ago. It supports children's hospitals, cancer research. This was driven in part by his own sister Kim's long battle with leukemia.
But he doesn't put his name on it.
No. He specifically chooses not to attach his name publicly to the foundation or many of his donations.
Yeah.
Which really emphasizes that it's not about PR, it's just genuine. His whole attitude towards money seems secondary. He famously said, "Money is the last thing I think about. I could live on what I have already made for the next few centuries."
And the gifts he gives to people he works with are just next level. We talked about the Harleys for the Matrix stunt guys. He kept that going.
Oh, yeah. For John Wick. Chapter 4, he gave his core personal stunt team these beautiful custom-engraved Rolex Submariner watches.
Hello, Lexus, for the stunt team.
Yeah. And it's not just the big, flashy gifts. For the wider crew on Chapter 4, he apparently gave them all personalized T-shirts that tallied how many times the character they played as an extra died in the movie.
Huh. That's brilliant. It's those kinds of things, witnessed by hundreds on set, that build that reputation.
Exactly. It's why colleagues, like Lawrence Fishburne, consistently describe him as this very gentle, highly intelligent man, one of the kindest people in Hollywood. It feels authentic because it's backed up by countless small, consistent actions.
Which is why that whole internet's boyfriend thing has stuck, isn't it? It feels earned, validated by these real moments that somehow go viral.
Totally. Like that story about his United flight getting grounded on the way to LA from San Francisco, ended up stuck in Bakersfield.
Oh yeah, I heard about this. What did he do?
Instead of just getting a private car, he apparently helped organize a van for a bunch of the stranded passengers to drive the rest of the way. And then, during the drive, he's reading them fun facts about Bakersfield off his phone, playing local country music from the 50s via YouTube to entertain everyone.
That sounds almost too wholesome to be true. Is the consensus that this stuff is genuine? Or is it a calculated persona?
Everything points to it being genuinely him.
Yeah.
Which is why the persona works, why it endures. It's not an act. Even the sad Keanu meme back in 2010.
The picture of him on the park bench looking melancholic.
Right. It resonated because he looked genuinely thoughtful, maybe a bit vulnerable. He brushed it off later, just said, I was hungry. But fans created Cheer Up Keanu Day because of it. There's this protective instinct people feel towards him.
But maybe the most defining public moment, the one that really crystallized that perception of his grace and thoughtfulness, was on Stephen Colbert's show.
Oh, absolutely. Colbert asked him that big existential question. What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
And his answer was just perfect.
So simple, so profound. He just paused, looked up, and said, I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
Wow. Just wow.
Right. The New Yorker wrote about it, saying it was so wise, so genuinely thoughtful, it felt like a rebuke to the usual empty celebrity chat.
That ability to meet intense public scrutiny with quiet sincerity, that's rare. It makes him feel like more than just a star. He's a cultural fixture.
Definitely. He got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame way back in 2005. And just last year, in 2023, scientists actually named a newly discovered compound that kills fungi. Kenomycin.
Kenomycin, that's amazing. He's literally fighting fungus now.
Apparently it's that effective. And we can't forget the whole secretly immortal meme. The comparisons to historical figures like that French actor Paul Mounet or even Charlemagne.
Because he doesn't seem to age.
Exactly. He's even joked about it, acknowledging the resemblance in the eyes, the nose. It adds to this mythic quality. He seems almost timeless, yet he constantly projects this very real, very human kindness. #TagOutTrey.
So if we try to pull it all together, these 4 decades, what's the pattern? It seems like Keanu Reeves navigated these incredible professional highs and lows.
Huge risks, yeah. Turning down massive paydays, going up to do theater in Winnipeg, directing a movie that flopped.
And enduring just devastating personal losses. By staying incredibly dedicated to what? Artistic creation in all its forms, discipline, and this remarkable quiet generosity.
I think that's it. He fundamentally seemed to choose connection, quality, integrity over just maximizing profit or playing it safe. Launching ARCH Motorcycle, creating BRZRKR, producing documentaries, alongside the constant physical training and taking those big theatrical risks. His whole career feels like a testament to doing things his own way, with integrity.
And that integrity, that way of navigating his career, it brings us back to that core idea we talked about earlier, that lesson of impermanence he learned from little Buddha.
Yeah, it's such a paradox, isn't it? He plays Neo, this iconic, seemingly immortal hero, yet his actual career path has been anything but stable. It's been this constant cycle of ups and downs, massive hits followed by quiet periods or outright flops. It perfectly mirrors that transient nature of life he seems so aware of.
So what's the final thought for you, the listener, thinking about all this? Maybe his enduring stardom, his unique connection with audiences comes from exactly that tension.
Could be. He projects this image of blockbuster immortality, John Wick, Neo Dark, but simultaneously embodies this deep vulnerability, this awareness of mortality. He's the guy who thinks about death all the time, who accepts the downswings as part of the ride.
So has Keanu Reeves almost unintentionally become this perfect, empathetic avatar for how we all experience modern life? Trying to balance the extraordinary with the ordinary, the legendary with the genuinely humble, the successes with the inevitable setbacks. Maybe that's the real secret to his staying power.
It's definitely something to think about. The anomaly who somehow became universally relatable.